AHEADinVET, which stands for Vocational Education and Training, is an Erasmus Plus project co-funded by the European Union that aims to upskill VET teachers and trainers in dealing with the mental health of their learners. You are listening to the AHEAD Mental Health, Navigating Mental Health in Vocational Education podcast. AHEAD in Mental Health, Navigating Mental Health in Vocational Education is a podcast series that delves into issues related to the mental health of trainees and trainers in the VET sector. Experts in the field of mental health and VET will be sharing their experience and expertise, allowing us to gain a better understanding of the topic of mental health. I am Elisa Borrione, project manager of this project, representing Excelia and the consortium. Thank you for joining us and enjoy. Our guest for today's episode is Dr. Gregoria Kapelle, a school psychologist at the School for Vocational Training of People with Disabilities in Athens. She will help us discuss today's subject, preparing VET teachers for supporting the mental health of their students. Thank you for being with us today, Gregoria. So let's start with the first question. Why is it important for VET teachers to be equipped to support the mental health of their students?
Well, I believe it's vital for VET teachers to be equipped to support the mental health of their students because mental well-being is directly linked to learning outcomes, personal development, and long-term success. Also, VET students often face unique challenges from academic pressure and career uncertainties to personal and financial stressors, which can significantly impact their mental health. So I think that teachers are in a unique position to recognize early signs of distress, offer initial support, and create a learning environment that fosters psychological safety and resilience. And I think that this can literally make the difference between a student staying in the program and dropping out. And beyond that, it sets them up for success. If students learn how to manage their mental health while they're in a supportive learning environment, they are better equipped to handle challenges in the workplace later on. So I believe that by being informed and proactive about mental health, VET educators not only help students thrive academically, but also contribute to reducing stigma, promoting help-seeking behaviors, and preparing individuals to navigate both their careers and personal lives with greater emotional strength.
What role do VET teachers play in addressing the mental health needs of their students? And what can they do to help?
VET teachers play a huge role in this area. Whether they realize it or not, they are not just instructors, they are mentors, role models, and often the most consistent presence in a student's life during their training journey. So I think they are in a unique position to notice when something is off, whether it's a student struggling to meet deadlines or withdrawing socially or even showing signs of stress or burnout. So I think that the first thing is just being aware. That means knowing the signs of mental health struggles like changes in behavior, attendance issues, or a drop in performance. And then it's about building trust. If students feel comfortable, we're more likely to share what's going on. At this point, it's important to mention that teachers don't have to solve everything, but they can listen without judgment and point students toward the right resources like counselors or support services. And finally, I believe they can also make adjustments in the classroom. For example, being flexible with deadlines when they know a student is dealing with a tough situation or breaking assignments into smaller steps to reduce overwhelm. I think that all that has been mentioned is important because even small gestures like these can make a massive difference.
How can VET teachers prepare themselves to support the mental health of their students?
The first thing I'd say is education. Teachers need to learn the basics about mental health. That doesn't mean they need to become psychologists, but understanding common mental health challenges like anxiety, depression, or stress is a great starting point. Also, there are workshops, webinars, or even short mental health first aid courses designed specifically for educators. Another thing teachers can do is to build strong relationships with their students. If you take time to understand their challenges and their goals, you are more likely to notice when something is off and step in early. But let's be real, teachers have a lot on their plates already. So, how can they prepare without feeling overwhelmed themselves? I think that teachers need to look after their own mental health first. They should set boundaries, take breaks, and use the support systems available to them, like colleagues or professional development programs. And let's not forget, they don't have to do this alone. Schools and training organizations often have counselors or mental health resources, so teachers should know how to connect students to those services instead of feeling like they have to carry the load themselves. Also, teachers can follow organizations or networks that focus on mental health in education. There are always new tools, strategies, and resources being developed. Plus, sharing experience with other teachers through professional learning communities or even casual chats can provide fresh ideas and keep them feeling supported. So, to recap, to just say that preparation is a journey, not a one-time thing. So, the more teachers invest in understanding mental health, the more they'll feel confident supporting their students.
What kind of training or education do VT teachers need in order to be effective in supporting students with mental health needs?
In order to effectively support students with mental health needs, VT teachers need comprehensive training that goes beyond basic awareness. This includes mental health literacy to recognize common signs of distress, such as changes in behavior, mood, or academic performance. They should also receive training in early intervention strategies, for example, knowing how to approach a student with sensitivity, offer initial support, and refer them to appropriate professional resources when necessary. Also, skills in active listening, trauma-informed practices, and building a psychologically safe classroom environment are equally important. Additionally, professional development should cover stress management and self-care techniques, not just for students but for teachers themselves, as supporting mental health can be emotionally demanding. And more specialized training can really help too. For example, professional development workshops that focus on supporting specific groups of students, like those dealing with trauma, students with learning differences, or even those navigating cultural barriers. So I think that understanding how mental health intersects with things like socioeconomic challenges or diversity is a game changer, and I strongly believe that the ultimate goal is to empower educators to respond with confidence without feeling like they need to take on the role of a therapist.
What are some common barriers to VT teachers feeling prepared to support their students' mental health?
Well, one of the biggest barriers is a lack of training. A lot of teachers come into the job with expertise in their trade or industry, but mental health support isn't typically part of their training, so they might feel like they don't have the knowledge or tools to step into the role. Another big one is time. Teachers are already juggling a lot: lesson planning, teaching, assessment, industry placements. Supporting students' mental health can feel like just one more thing on a very full plate. So even if they want to help, they might feel like there's just no time to do it effectively. Also, a big one that doesn't get talked enough is stigma. Some teachers might feel uncomfortable addressing mental health because they worry about saying the wrong thing, overstepping boundaries, or even how other staff might perceive them. And in some cases, students themselves might hesitate to open up because of the stigma surrounding mental health. And absolutely, teacher burnout is a massive issue. Supporting students emotionally can take a toll, especially if teachers aren't getting the support they need themselves. So if they are overwhelmed or dealing with their own mental health challenges, it's even harder to show up for their students in that way.
Can you describe an incident occurred at school and how the VT teacher responded?
Yes, I think that I have a great example of compassionate teaching in action. So the incident happened in a clay plastics workshop run by a teacher named Michael. One of his students, Maria, who has a mild intellectual disability, had been making fantastic progress. She was really passionate about sculpting and had a natural talent. But one day during class, Maria suddenly became upset. She was frustrated with her work, started crying, and eventually stormed out of the classroom. So Michael stayed calm and patient, which was so important. He didn't chase after Maria right away. He gave her a few minutes to cool down on her own. Once she seemed a bit calmer, he approached her outside the classroom in a quiet private space. Michael kept his tone soft and encouraging, and eventually Maria told him that she felt like her sculptures weren't as good as her classmates' work, and she was afraid that she was falling behind. On top of that, she'd be dealing with some challenges at home that were adding to her stress. So Michael reassured Maria that it was okay to feel frustrated and that everyone has off days. He explained that comparing herself to others wasn't necessary because her progress was her own, and he highlighted the strengths he'd noticed in her work. So in the end, Michael also coordinated with the school's support staff. He let the school counselor know about Maria's situation, and they arranged a few sessions for her to talk about the stress she was feeling at home. And in the classroom, Michael made sure to check in Maria on a daily basis, not just about her work, but about how she was feeling overall. He even introduced a small peer mentoring system, pairing Maria with supportive classmates to make the learning process feeling less isolating.
What are some effective strategies that VET teachers can use to support the mental health of their students?
Let's start with the foundation, building a supportive and inclusive environment. This means creating a classroom where students feel safe, respected, and valued. So simple things like greeting students warmly, showing genuine interest in their progress, and being approachable can go a long way in building trust. I think that another big one is early identification. Teachers can keep an eye out for changes in behavior. So once you notice something, approach the student privately and with empathy. And that's where strategy 3 comes in, active listening. When a student shares, don't try to jump in with advice or solutions right away. Just listen, validate their feelings, and thank them for trusting you. For example, you can say, "That sounds really tough. Thank you for telling me." And this creates a safe space for them to continue sharing. So I think that it's so important to let students feel heard without rushing to fix things. And that leads to strategy 4, connect students to resources. VET teachers don't have to handle everything themselves. So if a student needs more support, point them toward counselors, mental health services, or even hotline if appropriate. And finally, one last one I'd like to add to the list is to take care of your own mental health as a teacher, because you can't pour from an empty cup. So make sure you're setting boundaries, seeking support when you need it, and practicing self-care. It's important to mention that when you model healthy coping strategies, it shows your students that it's okay to prioritize their mental health too.
How can VET teachers create a supportive and inclusive environment for students with mental health needs?
Well, I think that the first step is fostering trust and safety. That means creating a space where students feel comfortable being themselves without fear of judgment. And this starts with the little things like greeting students by name, showing genuine interest in their work, and maintaining a positive and respectful tone in all interactions. Another important thing is about creating a sense of belonging. And how can teachers encourage that? I think that in order to foster belonging, teachers can focus on building community in the classroom. For example, group activities, collaborative projects, or even informal discussions can help students feel connected to their peers. And it's very important to be mindful of including everyone. This means recognizing and celebrating diversity, whether it's related to abilities or backgrounds or even perspectives. Additionally, I think that one thing teachers can do is adapt their teaching methods to meet diverse needs. For example, offer materials in multiple formats, written, visual, or hands-on, so students can engage in ways that work best for them. It's also helpful to provide clear instructions and consistent routines, which can reduce anxiety for students who struggle with change or uncertainty. So I think that structure can be so grounding, especially for students dealing with mental health challenges. Finally, I think that teachers can be proactive about checking in with students. For example, teachers can on a daily basis check in with students, both individually and as a group. And these check-ins don't have to be formal. For example, a quick how's everyone doing today, or asking how a project is coming along, can open the door for students to share if they're struggling. And if a student seems off, a private one-on-one conversation can make a huge difference. So to recap, Teachers should remember that they are not mental health professionals, and that's okay. The goal is to be a bridge to listen, support, and guide students to the right resources. So, setting clear boundaries, like keeping conversations solutions focused and not overstepping into therapeutic roles, is a key to maintaining that balance.
Our guest for today's episode was Dr. Kapelle. Thank you very much for joining and sharing with us today your knowledge and experience.
First of all, I would like to thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts and connect with your audience.
I'm Elisa Borrione, Project Manager of the project representing Excelia and the Consortium. Thank you for listening to the AHEAD in Mental Health, Navigating Mental Health in Vocational Education podcast, a series reproduced in the framework of the Erasmus Plus project AHEADinVET. Remember, mental health is an issue for which conversations need to continue, evolve and flourish, and together we can create a more compassionate and supportive VET community. For more information about the project, feel free to check out our project channels and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn. Find out more on our website, AHEADinVET.com.